how do we get into the process of writing a report, and what are the characteristics of a good report. So this is what we will go about studying, and it's one of the pertinent chapters and one of the important topics that is related with business communication. To begin with, what is a report? A report is said to be a formal document that represents information, analysis, findings on a specific topic or issue. And reports are of various types there, and reports are used in various professional and academic settings, and it is basically to communicate data, research, and recommendations to a specific audience. And reports typically follow a structured format and may include sections such as an introduction, methodology, findings, analysis, conclusions, and recommendations. So what are the various types of reports? We look at research reports. The purpose of it is to present findings from a very systematic research and analysis. There are various types of research reports. It could be scientific research reports. It could be research related with consumer and customer markets, which we call it as the market research reports. Then we look at what is called as business reports. The purpose of the business reports is basically to convey business related information, analysis, and recommendations. So the various financial reports, annual reports, project reports, all of them are a part of the business reports. And the next one is to do with technical reports. Now what these technical reports do is they communicate technical information, data, or various processes, and the examples are more about engineering reports, scientific reports, and they are considered to be technical manuals. And we have what is called as the investigative reports. These are documents which portray the findings from an investigation or inquiry. And examples of these are incident investigation reports, internal audit reports, and it is about the various types of other reports are to do with the feasibility reports, wherein we assess the viability of a project. I mean, whether it is good to consider or not, how do we do the appraisal, what are the different methods. If you relate it with finance, you talk about what is called as with time value of money, without time value of money. You do what is called as the viability, whether we accept, reject, or we delay. Now these kind of things are detailedly presented in a feasibility report. So this is called as feasibility studies, project proposal evaluations. The next type of report is to do with compliance report. Now what do we do here is it's to demonstrate adherence to regulations, to standards. Compliance is you obey the rules. Are you following it or not? So there is something called as compliance audit reports, or there could be what is called as regulatory compliance reports. There are various regulators, they go about with giving rules, regulations, norms from time to time, and these reports will go about with conveying whether those reports are being followed the way they have been prescribed. And then it is to do with the financial reports. Now these reports present the financial information and performance, how the company is done. Normally when you study it, we say there is something called as the common size statement, comparative statement, or trend analysis, or various types of ratios that are there. So you talk about liquidity, profitability, solvency, activity. I mean, it's like reading between the numbers and how is the company's health and various parameters. So we have things like income statement, the balance sheet, the profit and loss, receipts and payment, income and expenditure, various forecasts for future. All these form a part of the financial reports. Then it is to do with the marketing reports. We analyze the present marketing strategies, the various results that are related with it. Now when you make proposals or you talk about the marketing mix in terms of product, price, place, promotion for goods, and for services we talk about people, processes, physical evidence, and productivity. So things which are related with segmenting, targeting, positioning, the various types of plans, or how do we go about with countering the competitors in the marketplace, and the various strategies. Now strategy is a word which comes from warfare or warlike activities that are there. So we present very detailed reports of what is our future course of action in the marketplaces. So this is to do with trying to tell as to there was a promotional campaign. What is the result of it? Before the campaign started off, what were the sales? And at the end of the campaign, how is the sales there? So here we talk about the marketing campaigning reports, or sometimes we provide what is called as the market analysis reports. Who are the consumers, or who are the future or the potential consumers? Who are the past consumers? Why did our consumers end up becoming the competitors' consumers? What should we do to attract the competitors' customers towards us? And all these things comes with the market analysis, or where do we stand in the market? Are we the market leaders? Are we the challengers? Are we the followers? Or do we belong to the category which is called as the niche players that are there? Then it's to do with the progress report. Now this is more about where you update the various stakeholders. Like right from our school days, we have been hearing this word called report. How did we perform in a unit test, assignment test, quarterly, half-yearly, annual exams, or there is parent-teacher meetings where we have been told as to how did we fare well in our studies. Very much like that, there are people who are concerned about how the company is running. The people who have gone about with giving huge amounts of money, they are the actual owners of the business who are called as the shareholders, and they would like to know how their money is being used. Because in a joint stock company, what you see is there is a divorce between ownership and management. And the other stakeholders are to do with government. They are interested in knowing like how much part of their revenue would come as taxes to the government there. There are creditors who had given you loans. They want to know whether their money, the principal, the interest is safeguarded. So there is a report that is generated to update the stakeholders on the status and the progress of the project. So there could be weekly progress reports, there could be project status reports, or at times, when you have to apply for bank loans, they would ask you at to what stage of completion, how much money is required. They go about with working out the for and against, pros and cons before they go about with granting the further loans. Then there are the strategic reports. As we have already said that in business communication, that there are 3 different levels of planning that is done in a management, where we talk about top, middle, and lower. Top management, we talk about strategic plans. Middle management, we call it tactical. Lower level management, we call it more of operational. Now the kind of planning that is done at top management is called strategic. It's about futuristic. It is more about 5 to 10 years down the line. It goes about with outlining the long-term goals, the strategies, the plans that are to be executed. It goes about with outlining what is the mission, vision of the organization. The mission tells as to why the organization has taken birth. The vision is more about where the organization is going in future. So we look into those aspects there, and we study what is called as the strategic business plans, or the various organizational development reports that are there. So it's something of a very important document when it comes with a report. Then there are recommendation reports which provide suggestions or recommendations which are based on analysis. You draw interpretations, inferences at the end of an analysis. So whether you want to accept a proposal, reject a proposal, you want to give a justification of your reasons as to why you're accepting or why you're rejecting. And that is what makes a part of the recommendation reports. There could be policy recommendation reports. Now today we are running the organization based on yesterday's ideas, and they seem to be inadequate for facing the challenges of future. So what we try to figure out is what are the policies that are recommended if you want to keep in pace with the changes that are happening in the business. And the other one is the executive summaries that are there. Now the top management is not bogged down with giving them what is called as heavy loaded information wherein they'll have to figure out as to what that means. Instead, we practice what is called as management by exception, wherein we give them concise summaries of long reports, lengthy detailed reports, and we bring to their notice only highlighting the key points. So the executive summaries is as good as an abstract. Let's say that you have a report of 100 pages, you go through in depth of that 100 pages, or you go through only 2 or 3 pages which gives the essence of that 100 pages in that 2 or 3 pages. It serves the purpose for the executives for decision making. So we talk about business plans, research papers, they all come under the executive summaries. Then we have what is called as annual reports. There are organizations which rely on quarterly, half yearly, or over a year. How did they go about with performing? Compared to the last year, where do they stand now? Compared to their competitors in the last year, where do they stand now? Now the annual reports provide what is called as a comprehensive overview of an organization's performance. So it could include corporate annual reports. At times when you have meeting done with the shareholders, you call it the AGM reports, that is annual general body meeting reports. The organizations which are involved in not-for-profit, even they develop their annual reports. They give details about the receipts and payment, income and expenditure, balance sheets, a lot of other things that come in. And then we talk about audit reports. Now there could be internal audit or there could be external audit, qualified or unqualified reports. Somebody comes and checks as to how things are being carried out. Are they done ethically, or things are going wrong, things are going right? Are they following various procedures, policies that they need to carry it out without deviating from them? So the audit reports goes about with presenting the findings of finance or the various operational processes that are there. So there could be an internal audit report or an external audit report. It goes about with trying to see whether an organization is complying with whatever it is expected to do. And the other thing is we talk about the case study reports. Now here what we have is we analyze, we present information about a specific case or scenario. We have what is called as the business case study reports, academic case study reports. The structure, the content of a report depend on its type and purpose. Regardless of the specific type, report should be well organized, clear, concise, tailored to the needs of the intended audience. Now we look at what are the steps that are involved in report writing. What we have done in an element before this was we went about looking at various types of reports. Let's check into what are the steps that are involved in writing the report. First things first, we define the reason and the purpose for which the report is taken up. So we clearly understand the purpose, the objectives of the report, the kind of audience. There should not be a mismatch between the type of report and the type of audience. So here we always say a problem well understood, half solved. So you got to spend quality time on understanding and defining what the purpose of the report is. Now once we know what the purpose is and to whom it is intended, we gather information. We already said data, when it is processed, we get what is called as information. So we collect the relevant data and the information from sources which are credible. Now why do we call this? We say that it must be trustworthy. Is that information which we can rely upon? Because our decision making depends on the credibility of the source. If the source is not credible, our information could go bad. And if you recall your school days, we had an acronym which was to do with GIGO, which was garbage in, garbage out. So if the data is bad, the information is bad. So if the data is good, the processed data, that is information, will be good. So the quality of information depends on the credibility of sources that are there. So we outline the structure. So we define the purpose, we gather the information, we outline the structure. In the structure, we plan the structure of the report, outlining what are the key sections that we should go about with working and in the order in which the report should be given. And then the steps further if we go, we write the introduction part of the report where we introduce the topic. We mention what the objectives are. We got to be very specific about the kind of terms, the action words that we use in the objectives, the scope of the report. Now scope generally goes about telling the geographical boundaries. It tells you from what period to what period a report is prepared for, or what is the content. So if anybody wants to understand, read or raise issues, they have to do it within the boundaries of that scope there. And here we go about presenting the findings. So we organize the main body with a clear structure using headings, subheadings. So it is a very formal way that we draft a report. Then we analyze data. We provide a thoughtful analysis and interpretation of the findings. It's not just that we do analysis, it's also important to decipher what that analysis means. We go about with interpretation of the findings, and then we draw conclusions. We summarize the key points, draw logical conclusions there, and we make recommendations, that is, offer practical and actionable recommendations which is based on the analysis. At times we present this executive summary in the beginning, or we put it towards the end of the report there. So what this executive summary does is, it does the job of trying to give the entire report in a concise way, highlighting only the key findings and recommendations. It doesn't get into all the details, right from the introduction till the recommendation, but it goes about with giving very concise findings and recommendations. And then the other steps that are there is we need to edit, we need to do what is called as proofreading. Now what this proofreading does is if there are any errors, we have to overcome that. Now editing is about cutting, chopping, or removing unnecessary things which gets into the report, which enhances the redundancy or it renders a report useless. So the role of an editor, be it a newspaper or a magazine or a journal, is to ensure that the readability and the quality of writing gets improved. So here the review is done to report clarity and everything got to be in order. For that we use a word what is called as coherence, and we want to go about with presenting things in an accurate way. So we have to overcome what is called as grammatical errors, we have to format it, and we got to be consistent. At times, when we are reporting, probably there are words which are spelled correctly in British English, or it could be to do with the American English. But we go about with mixing it, it doesn't look good. So we are talking about maintaining what is called as consistency. And we got to finalize. So once we have done the editing and proofreading, it is about finalizing and distributing to the various stakeholders. So we make any necessary revisions and finalize the report, and we distribute the report to the intended audience. So what you need to remember when it comes to the steps of writing is you have to remember the style and format of the report may vary based on the organizational guidelines, the specific requirements of the task. So you have to be very much conscious about the clarity, the conciseness, and the logical flow of information. Usually you say you put the cart before the horse or horse before the cart there. So you can't have chapter 5 becoming chapter 2 and chapter 2 becoming chapter 5. So we talk about the logical flow of information, which is very essential for effective report writing. So till now what we have done is we have said the various forms of reports and the steps that are there in report writing. Now what we would do in the later part is understand what are the key elements of report writing. So in the key elements, what we notice first is the title page, which includes what is the title of the report, the name of the author, the date on which the report is being submitted, and any other relevant information that is needed for the audience to know, or whoever is reading, or to whomever it is intended. So here you see that the abstract or the executive summary comes at the beginning. It provides a brief overview of the report, summarizing the findings and recommendations. Then we have table of contents, which lists the sections, the subsections, which page numbers for easy navigation. Then we talk about the introduction, which introduces the purpose. We already said what is the scope of the report. It provides the background information, the context in which the report is done. Then we talk about the methodology, the approach that is being applied in getting to the report. It describes the methods that are used to gather the data. It could be primary data or secondary data. When we collect data for the very first time to meet our objectives, we call it primary. Data collected by somebody else, when we are trying to fine tune it to our requirement, we call it the secondary data. So whatever research that we conduct, and what are the various tools that are used for analysis, whether it is descriptive, whether it is influential, or whether what is the sampling method that we have used, whether you call it random, non-random, whether we call it probabilistic, non-probabilistic, or when we look into things like what should be the sample size and what are the limitations, all these things. In fact, the methodology serves the purpose of a blueprint of a report. See, when a building is constructed, the draftsman goes about with putting the plan on a paper. That's called the blueprint. So it acts as a compass for the later part of it. So in report writing, the methodology serves as a blueprint for the entire journey of the report writing part of it there. Then we do the findings and results. So it presents the main body of the information, the data or the analysis part, and organizes the content logically using various headings and subheadings. Then we do the discussion and analysis. So we have presented the data. We read between the data. What does the data convey? So we interpret the findings, we provide analysis, and we discuss the implications, trends, the relationship with the data. And the conclusions part of it, we summarize what are the main points, the findings, which are based on the analysis. And here you have to be very careful. I've seen reports, whether it's research or non-research there, wherein they present very general what is called as conclusions there. Your conclusions got to be based on your data. And the data that you collect is based on your objectives. So there got to be a connectivity, there got to be a coherence between the objectives, the nature of the data, and the conclusions that you draw there. If this is missing, I think people will question why the report is done or why is it being presented at all. And then the recommendations that are there, it suggests the future course of actions or the solutions which are drawn based on the conclusions there. So it should not be which is based on personal experience there, it should be based on the kind of data, it should be backed by the results of the conclusions there. So it should provide clear and actionable recommendation. Then we have to provide the various list of sources, or you have visited various websites, books, material, and you got to be careful in citing them. And if you have borrowed something from somewhere, you'll have to go about with acknowledging the authors whom you have to go about with, saying that it is their idea that has been presented here. So that is where you talk about citation. And whatever you felt is not the main part of the report, you got to go about with presenting it in the appendices. So it could be supplementary material such as raw data, charts, graphs, or any additional documentation that is there. It comes at the end. So what we have done now is we have done with the types of reports, the steps that are there, and the key elements which go into report writing. Now what we look into is what are the characteristics of a good report. So when you understand what a good report, it also conveys what is not a good report. So you should got to understand that what a bad report is. So you shouldn't get for that. So a good report is characterized by several key elements that contribute towards effectiveness and clarity. Now that is the core element of report writing, a sense of clarity. The wavelength in which you are thinking, what is there in your mind, are you presenting it in black and white? And the reader got to understand in the same way. So there got to be a sense of purpose and clarity between the one who is communicating and the one who is reading or to whom it is intended. So here are some of the characteristics which we talk about when it comes with the characteristics of a good report. A good report should be very well structured, it should be very objective, and it should be an informative report. And what is the core element is the purpose got to be very clear. So the report got to clearly define the purpose and the objectives, why that report has been presented. You got to state the problem, you got to state the issues that would be addressed by that report. Then it should be in a very structured format which follows a logical, organized structure with a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. It should include headings, subheadings to guide the reader, and there should be a kind of general flow. Now what we say is a rule of a para. There should be one idea which should be presented in a para, and para has got sentences. The sentences should not test somebody's breath while reading. So it should be short, crisp sentences which conveys one idea, and there should be a logical flow when somebody moves from one para to another para. So we talk about conciseness. So it should not be very voluminous kind of a thing there. It should present information in a concise and to the point. It's not beating around the bush kind of a thing there. It should avoid unnecessary details and information, and accuracy is there when we say that it should provide accurate and reliable information which should be supported by credible sources. So we should avoid errors in data, facts, interpretation. And then the other feature of a good report is relevance. So you should focus on the relevance of information that directly addresses the researcher's objectives or the report objectives. It should eliminate what is called as unnecessary or tangential details that are there, which could digress from the purpose of report. There should be that element of clarity and cohesion. So you got to use language which got to be straightforward, clear. It should not be verbose, it should not be rosy. It should not be that every word that you write, the reader got to go about with referring to a thesaurus or a dictionary to find the meaning there. Got to use simple words which make it readable. So you should ensure smooth transition between the various sections, the paragraphs, and easy readability got to be the core of the report. And then we talk about objectivity. got to maintain that unbiased and neutral tone. That's very essential, not taking sides. Present the information objectively without personal opinion and biases. It should be a comprehensive coverage which should cover all relevant aspects of the topic without overlooking important details. It should ensure a thorough analysis of the subject matter. And then the report got to be backed with proper evidence and support. Supporting findings and conclusions with relevant data is mandatory. So when you don't support, you can't claim whatever is being said in the report. So it should include citations where referencing of external sources are done. And there should be visual elements which got to be used appropriately, wherein we say that it should incorporate visuals like charts, graphs, tables. There should be proper labeling of the tables and the charts, mentioning what would come on the x-axis, what would be there on the y-axis. We say a picture speaks 1,000 words. So the visual part is very much important here. Got to ensure visual elements are appropriately labeled and becomes easy to interpret. The recommendations are to be providing actionable recommendations. It should not be something utopian or working in very, very difficult conditions. Things which can be worked upon based on the findings. It should not be general and personal recommendations there. It should be backed by evidence, and it should offer practical solution to address the identified issues. It should be timely. It should be delivered in a timely manner, addressing within the time frame set for the report, and it should remain relevant to the current context or situation. So the audience consideration, they say that tailors language and the content, it should be tailored to the contents, the needs and understanding of the target audience. It should consider the background and the knowledge level of the readers. So we use words that are very technical, and we got to go about with keeping the common man in view and trying to write the report there. So we got to match the type of audience to the type of language that we go about with using. And one of the very important things in report writing is editing and proofreading to ensure that the report is free of grammatical errors, spelling mistakes, typographical errors, and you got to go through, and that is done through editing and proofreading processes. And the concise executive summary, which includes brief and concise summary summarizing the main points and recommendations. So it's by incorporating these characteristics in a report, you can enhance its overall quality and effectiveness in enhancing the information to the intended audience then. So all in all, what we have done in this unit is we focused on what is report writing, and we said what is meant by a report, what are the various types of report. We said there are research reports, there are business reports, there are technical reports, investigative reports, feasibility reports, compliance reports, financial reports, marketing reports, progress, strategic, recommendation and executive summaries, annual reports, audit reports, case studies. So we said about the various types of reports. Very quickly on summarizing the steps that are involved, we got to define the purpose, gather information, outline the structure, write the proper introduction, present the findings, analyze the data, and then it's about drawing conclusions, make recommendations, write the executive summary, and very essential thing not to forget to ensure that everything is in right way there, that is editing and proofreading and finalizing and distributing. These were the steps that were there. Then we said about the key elements. It's to do with the title page, the abstract executive summary, the table of contents, introduction, methodology, findings, discussion, conclusions, recommendations, references, bibliography, and things which don't form the part of the main report, we call it the annexures or the appendices. And we discussed the various characteristics of a good report in terms that it got to have a clear purpose, it got to be structured format, it got to be concise, it got to be accurate, relevance, there is an element of accuracy, clarity and cohesion, objectivity, comprehensiveness, and then we say about evidence, visual elements is very important to enhance the readability, recommendations. It should be addressed to meeting the needs of that time, it got to be timely, it should not be based on the things which are obsolete. You got to consider the audience, the readers in mind, and most importantly, editing and proofreading. Bye for now.